Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into one of the most profound transhumanist questions ever penned in sci-fi. Just think about this for a second. If we were forced to rely entirely on technology to feel empathy, have we actually saved our humanity? Or have we just become machines ourselves? We're taking a really close look at Philip K. Dick's masterpiece, Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? You know, the legendary novel that inspired Blade Runner. But we're focusing on a mind-bending element that the movie actually left out completely.
Here's our roadmap for today's explainer. We'll start with the world after the cataclysmic war. Then look at Mercerism and the prophet Wilbur Mercer. After that, the empathy box and mood organ, humans versus cold androids, the Voight-Kamp humanity test, and finally, fraud or true humanity. It's going to be a wild ride from a broken world straight through some bizarre tech, right to a massive philosophical takeaway. All right, section 1, the world after the cataclysmic war. To really get the philosophy here, we've got to understand the sheer devastation of the setting Philip K. Dick cooked up. But before we dig into the ruins of this society, I want you to keep this central existential mystery in the back of your mind. What makes us human? Seriously, when literally everything else is stripped away, what is that core element that separates us from a machine? So, the Earth in this story, it's been completely ravaged by a cataclysmic event known as World War Terminus. We're talking a radioactive wasteland. To save the human race from total extinction, anyone with the biological and intellectual capacity is heavily pushed to emigrate to off-world colonies, mostly on Mars. But what about the people left behind? Well, they're the ones who failed these really rigid biological and IQ tests. Society cruelly calls them specials or chicken heads. They are stuck on a dying, toxic rock. And to survive without descending into total barbarism, they had to adopt a completely new moral and religious structure. Which brings us to Section 2, Mercerism and the prophet Wilbur Mercer. This is the bizarre survival mechanism humanity adopted when traditional religions faded away. They turned to Mercerism. This religion is basically the ultimate philosophical glue holding the survivors together. In this alternate Earth, traditional Christianity is gone. Instead, Mercerism takes its place, centering around a prophet named Wilbur Mercer. And here's the kicker. This religion makes empathy the absolute highest law of survival. It's this wild blend, mixing the sacrificial suffering of Jesus Christ, the endless repetitive struggle of Sisyphus from Greek mythology, and the quiet, deep endurance of Zen Buddhism. The core myth of Mercerism is a literal uphill battle. Followers focus on Mercer as he endlessly climbs this steep, barren mountain. And as he climbs, he's being pelted by stones from unseen, unknown enemies. Eventually, he's struck down, dying, and falling into a pit of corpses, only to resurrect and start the climb all over again. I mean, it's the textbook definition of futile work, right? A total Sisyphean task. But here's the crucial part. The followers endure this suffering together. They don't just watch it, they actively participate in it. So, how exactly do they participate? Let's jump into Section 3, the empathy box and the mood organ. This is the fascinating, honestly borderline obsessive technology that enforces this post-apocalyptic faith. This quote right here brilliantly captures the heart of the matter. It comes from J.R. Isidore, one of the specials left behind on Earth. Followers of Mercerism use a device called an empathy box. You literally grip these handles, and boom, you are instantly physically merged with Wilbur Mercer, and with everyone else across the galaxy who's using the box at that exact moment. You actually feel the rocks hitting you. Your arm will physically bruise. Isidore uses the empathy box because it cures his absolute, crushing isolation. Through this tech, empathy isn't just a nice idea, it is a shared physical and spiritual network. Like he says, it extends your body so you are never alone. But wait, the empathy box isn't the only emotional tech out there. Contrast it with the Penfield mood organ. In the source material, our protagonist, bounty hunter Rick Deckard, gets into an argument with his wife, Iran. And Iran literally dials a setting on her machine to artificially induce a 6-hour self-accusatory depression. Seriously, the mood organ allows humans to just mechanically dial in their emotions, whether that's the desire to watch TV, the motivation to go to work, or even profound despair. It really begs the question, if our feelings are artificially programmed by a machine just by punching in a number, are we actually experiencing human emotion? That brings us to Section 4, Humans versus Cold Androids. Empathy, whether it's natural or technologically induced, becomes the absolute dividing line between biological survival and artificial coldness. Now, in Mercerism, empathy extends way beyond just humans. Because World War Terminus wiped out almost all biological animals, Owning a pet is the ultimate status symbol. Actually, it's a strict moral duty. But since real animals are impossibly expensive, corporations manufacture these incredibly realistic robotic replicas called simulacra. Everyone just pretends their robotic sheep or horse is real. And if you fail to care for an animal, even a fake one, you become a social outcast. It basically proves you lack the empathy required by Mercerism.
So the real crux of this is the direct comparison between the two. On one side, we have humans, categorized biologically almost like herbivores. They rely on group instinct, shared joy, and shared pain. They survive through community and, of course, the empathy box. On the flip side, we have the humanoid androids. These guys are built for slave labor off-world. They're highly intelligent, sure, but they represent the solitary predator. They possess this terrifying steel coldness. They have zero empathy. If another android is suffering right in front of them, they feel absolutely nothing. They are entirely logical but completely soulless. Because these androids are so incredibly realistic, and because they occasionally rebel, escape, and hide out on Earth, humanity desperately needs a way to protect society from these soulless killers. Enter Section 5, the Voight-Kampff Humanity Test. This is the primary tool of the Blade Runner. It's kind of like a polygraph machine, but instead of testing for lies, it tests for empathy. The bounty hunter asks these really unsettling hypothetical questions involving extreme cruelty to animals, like boiling a dog alive or flipping a turtle on its back. Gross, right? Well, the machine measures the involuntary dilation of eye muscles and the capillary blushes in the cheek. Androids fail this test not because they aren't incredibly smart, but because they physically and biologically cannot feel instinctual empathy for another living creature. Their emotional response is just flat. Which brings us right to the climax of the narrative. Section 6, Fraud or True Humanity. Let's look at the ultimate philosophical twist regarding the very foundation of Mercerism itself. In this totally shocking moment, a prominent media personality named Buster Frunley broadcasts a massive expose. He reveals that Wilbur Mercer, he's just an old actor in a Hollywood studio set. The rocks are made of plastic. The entire religion, the whole empathetic experience, it's an artificial fraud created to control the masses. And what's truly chilling is that while this broadcast is playing, a group of escaped androids are watching it, and they are gleefully using scissors to cut the legs off a real living spider just to see what happens. The androids are celebrating the death of Mercerism, completely indifferent to the suffering of the poor creature right in front of them. And, this brilliantly illustrates the core philosophical takeaway of the whole story. Yes, Mercerism is an artificial construct, the system is totally rigged, but the empathy it generates in the human soul is completely undeniably real. For Philip K. Dick, empathy is the ultimate red line. It's the only thing preventing humans from devolving into the cold, steel monsters that the androids represent. Even if you're plugging into an artificial box or taking care of a fake robotic sheep, the fact that you choose to care, that is what saves your humanity. Which leaves us with this final, lingering thought. As we march toward a future that's deeply integrated with technology, where our connections and even our realities might become simulated, if our world becomes completely artificial, will it be our raw biology or our simple capacity to suffer together that proves we are still human? Just think about that next time you look at your screens. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.